Hey there, everyone. It's Mrs. Asaro here with another First Chapter Friday, and it is December. We are in full swing, and I am very excited to share the December holidays with you. Book I picked today is in honor of Hanukkah, and it is called Dreidels on the Brain by Joel Ben Izzy. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you have a copy of your First Chapter Friday sheet. It is available for free. I've linked it in the video description. You can print it, keep them in your reader's notebook, and as you're listening to new stories, you can have something to refer to when you're ready for a new read for yourself. Okay, so let's hear a little bit about Dreidels on Brain. Hanukkah is supposed to be happy. But not for Joel, a seriously funny-looking 12-year-old magician who dreams of being his own superhero. Normalman. He's a long way from that, as he's the only Jewish person at Bixby School, where his attempts to make himself disappear fail spectacularly. Home is no better, with a family that's flat out broke, mortifyingly embarrassing, and hobbling toward disaster. That's why Joel is betting everything on these 8 nights of Hanukkah, 1971, to see whether it's worth believing in God or miracles or anything at all. Armed with his favorite jokes, some choice Yiddish words, and a suitcase full of magic tricks, he's scrambling to come to terms with the world around him, from hospitals to Houdini to the Holocaust, before the last of the candles burns out. No wonder his head is spinning. He's got dreidels on the brain. Little does he know that what's actually about to happen to him and his family this Hanukkah will be worse than he'd feared and better than he could have imagined. This very funny, very touching novel of growing up Jewish has all the makings of a holiday classic. Okay, so as you know, this is First Chapter Friday. Very often I read more than one chapter because they're very short. In this case, the first chapter is really, really long. It's 43 pages long. So I'm going to be stopping at one of these natural breaking points where we have a change of scene. But I do want you to get a taste for it. So let's take a listen to chapter 1 of Dreidels on the Brain. It's called The First Candle, Chopped Liver, Sunday, December 12th, 1971. So take a look. And here's the dreidel, and it tells you when it's taking place, okay? I could have stopped at 3 and called it a miracle. After all, 3 in a row is good. Not just good, great. You know the odds of that happening by itself? Minuscule. A dreidel has 4 sides, so the chance of getting a single gimel, which is the letter you want, is 1 in 4. The chances of getting 2 in a row is 1 in 16. And 3 in a row, which I had just spun, is 1 in 64. And the number 3 makes a lot of sense. There are all kinds of things that come in 3. Tic-tac-toe, 3 in a row, snap, crackle, pop, third time's a charm, 3 strikes, you're out, and stories, which I love, are filled with 3s. It's always the third son who sets off to seek his father's fortune and actually finds it, which works for me because I'm the third son. There's Goldilocks and the 3 bears, the 3 little pigs. But those things aren't Jewish, especially the pigs. They are, as my dad would say, goyish, which is the Jewish word for non-Jewish things. For Christians, 3 is a magic number, like the Holy Trinity. And maybe if I wasn't Jewish, spinning 3 gimels in a row would have been enough. Then again, if I wasn't Jewish, I wouldn't have been spinning a dreidel in the first place, trying to figure out whether I should believe in magic or God or miracles, or anything at all. For Jews, things come in fours, like the four sides of a dreidel. Just look at Passover. You drink 4 cups of wine, ask 4 questions, tell about the 4 types of children. Besides, 4 was the deal I'd made with God before the first spin. Hey, God, I'd said, Happy Hanukkah. I never know how to talk to God and always end up feeling foolish. I'm looking for a sign, nothing big, nothing fancy, no lightning or thunderbolts, just a little sign. Between you and me, I held up the dreidel. So I'm going to spin the dreidel 4 times, and if you're there, I'd like you to give me 4 gimmels in a row. That didn't seem like too much to ask, just one lousy miracle. And why, you might ask, did I think this Hanukkah should be different from everything else in the first 12 years of my life? Has been so amazingly, astoundingly, unbelievably unmiraculous. Well, for one thing, I could feel it in the air. Outside, it was really cold, even misty, that kind of feeling you get just before it snows, when the world gets all quiet and the light becomes soft. At least that's how I think it feels. I've never actually seen snow on the ground or falling from the sky, though I've read a lot about it in books. But it had been raining all day, a cold rain day, and I had just checked the barometer on the front porch for the 10th time, and I could see it was between 29 and 30, pushing toward snow. The windows were so foggy I couldn't see outside, so I could pretend I was somewhere else, anywhere else but here in Temple City, California. It was also the perfect time for a miracle. The house was quiet and I was alone. I had looked through the garage and found the cardboard box of Hanukkah decorations. Sifting through the dreidels, which were mostly crooked or broken, I found a perfect one made of wood, painted orange, with gold letters. I don't know where we got it, but it was nicely balanced. Just to be sure, I spun it a half dozen times, just a regular old normal dreidel. Excellent. Then I cleared all the junk off the table, a bunch of papers, my dad's electronic stuff, and some glow in the dark phone dials, and piled it on the washing machine. I wasn't going to let anything interfere with these 4 spins. So I took the sponge from the sink and cleaned off the tabletop so thoroughly that I could see the little gold sparkles among the black and gray swirls of the formica. All right, God, I whispered, this is your chance. 4 gimmels in a row, one little Hanukkah miracle, right here, right now. I spun a good solid spin, and when the first gimmel came up, I was impressed. All right, I said that's one. But when the second gimmel came up, everything changed. Excellent, I said, trying to act casual, like miracles happen to me all the time, as opposed to never. I wound up the dreidel and spun again, hard as I could. Gimmel. This time I went wild. Yes, I shouted. Yes, that's it. Woohoo! I completely lost it, jumping around, screaming, Mano Manischewitz. Be quiet, said Howard, who had come out of his room. You're making too much noise. I'm trying to concentrate. When I said I was alone, I wasn't counting Howard. He's my oldest brother, and he spends all his time in his room with the door closed studying math. That's all he ever does. He's 15 and he's in high school and is supposed to be some kind of super brilliant genius. At least that's what he tells us. The only time he stops studying is to come out and eat or when Kenny and I are making noise. Kenny's my other brother, who is 2 years older than me and actually likes to have fun. His real name is Kenneth, but everyone calls him Kenny. But no one calls Howard Howie. He won't let them. When Kenny and I make noise, Howard stomps out and yells at us, then goes back into his room and shuts the door. That's one reason Kenny and I hardly ever have friends over. But at the moment, I couldn't have cared less about Howard. This was between me and God. All right, I whispered, suddenly feeling nervous about the next spin. 3 in a row is pretty good, I said. Really good, but it's not a miracle. Not yet. It might just be luck, after all. It's just a 1 in 64 chance. I stopped myself because, weird as it feels to talk to God, it's even weirder to lecture God about math. I brushed off any microscopic dust that might have settled on the table. Just one more Gimel, I said, so quietly only God could hear me. That's all I'm asking. I wound the dreidel between my thumb and middle finger and spun. I realize none of this will make sense to you if you're not Jewish and don't know what a dreidel is. Even if you are Jewish and know all about dreidels, it still won't make much sense because the whole game of dreidel doesn't make sense. Nobody can agree on the rules, which is how you know it's a Jewish game. A dreidel is a spinning top with 4 sides. Maybe you've heard that stupid, insane, insipid song, the one that always gets stuck in my head this time of year. I have a little dreidel, I made it out of clay, and when it's dry and ready, oh dreidel, I shall play. Shoot, now it's stuck in my head. I'm sorry if it's stuck in yours too. From now on, I'll just refer to it as the horrible song. Anyway, the horrible song by itself wouldn't be so bad, but when the choir sings it at school, along with the Christmas carols, and everybody acts as if they've done us Jews a big favor, it makes me want to barf. Back to dreidels, which, by the way, can be made of wood, plastic, metal, or even styrofoam. Anything but clay. They date back to the time of Antiochus, this mean Seleucid ruler who wouldn't let the Jew study Torah, which is one thing Jews love to do most, like Howard studies math. So the Jews came up with this trick of keeping dreidels handy when they studied. That way, when the soldiers came by, they'd hide their books and whip out their dreidels, and the soldiers, who weren't too bright, figured they were just gambling, not studying. As soon as the soldiers left, out came the Torah. That's another totally Jewish thing. Other people might have toys they play with in secret to avoid studying, but Jews have toys we pretend to play with so we can study in secret. Go figure. Anyhow, there are 4 Hebrew letters on a dreidel: Gimel, Hey, Nun, and Shin. Gimel is the best, but everyone agrees on that. And when it's your turn to spin, it lands on Gimel. You win whatever is in the pot, which is usually pennies or stale chocolate coins. That's easy to remember because Gimel sounds like gimme all. When you get Hey, which is spelled Hey, you get half of what's in the pot. After that, it gets confusing. None, spelled Nun, means nothing, but some people play that when you get none, you do nothing, while others say it means you're supposed to have nothing, so you lose everything you've got. The last letter is Shin, which is always bad because you lose something or maybe everything. The only good thing about Shin is that when you get it, you can shout, "Oh, Shin!" It's pretty vague between none and shin, and that's where the whole thing falls apart. I have never played a game of dreidel that hasn't either fizzled out or ended in an argument. If you still don't understand the rules, don't worry because no one does, but here's my point. If you spin a dreidel again and again, sooner or later it has to land on Gimel. You don't need some kind of giant computer brain to figure that out. I'm not saying it should happen every time or even very often, just once in a while. If, however, you keep spinning and it only ever lands on shin or none, then something is seriously wrong. Maybe the dreidel is loaded, like the dice that they have at Berg Studio Magic, my favorite place in the world, by the way. It's on Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, and Mr. Berg knew all the great magicians and tells stories about them. There's a display shelf of illusions, and right in the center, there's a straitjacket that Harry Houdini actually escaped from. There's even a picture of him wearing it, hanging upside down from a crane over a street in Chicago, and the rope was on fire. I asked Mr. Berg if I could touch the straitjacket, but he just laughed, then gave me a pair of dice to play with. Every time I rolled them, they landed on 5 and 2. Sometimes one would land on another number, then flip over, like Mexican jumping beans. He said the dice were loaded and would always win in a game called craps, which I never played, but it is a fun word to say. Back to dreidel. If it's not a loaded dreidel and all you ever get is shin, you have to wonder. It's like the farmer who wakes up on a beautiful spring day, walks out to his front door, and steps on a rake. It flips up and hits him in the face. Wham! Dazed and confused, he staggers and reaches his hand out to lean on a wall. Only it's not a wall, it's his bull, who doesn't like it one bit. Bull chases the farmer all over until he dives into his tractor for protection. But his hand accidentally hits the lever and the thing starts up. Only he's not in the driver's seat. He's hanging off the side from one suspender of his overalls, getting dragged through the mud all over the fields until the tractor finally runs out of gas. And as he's lying there in the mud, all beat up, the bull comes back, sniffs him, then poops right in his face. And the farmer looks up and says, "Why, God, why are you doing this to me?" Then the sky parts, and this booming voice says, "There's just something about you that really bugs me." I heard that joke from Brian, my best friend, and it's pretty good. But I would like to believe it's just a joke. I would like to believe that God is not up there snuffing out lives like cigarette butts. In particular, I would like to believe all evidence to the contrary that my father, who never gets a break, no matter how hard he tries, is not one of those being snuffed out. And our home is not the ashtray. That even though we've lost again and again until now, we're not actually losers. We just haven't won yet, because it seems to me that if life is a game of dreidel and you keep spinning enough times and there's a God who doesn't hate you, will eventually land on Gimel. And by eventually, I mean now. Hanukkah of 1971. And I'm going to stop right there. Um, I hope that you will check this book out. There's a lot more that happens, obviously. I only read you the first bit of it. But Joel is really struggling with things, and it's really very interesting to see the way everything begins to work out and how things change for his family. So go to your local library. If they don't have it, you can request it and they can go to a neighboring library, most likely, and grab it for you. That's what they did at mine. That's how I got it. And I think that you will love it, especially during the month of December. So I hope you enjoyed today's pick. Be sure to check back next week, as I'm going to be adding new book each and every week for the month of December and beyond. Until then, happy reading, and I'll see you next Friday.